The hospital gown felt like paper against my skin, thin, cold, humiliating. At 72 years old, I never imagined I'd be lying on this gurney in the surgical wing of St. Joseph's Hospital, waiting for them to crack open my chest and repair the heart that had carried me through 7 decades of life. My name is Eleanor Hayes, and until this morning, I thought I knew exactly who I was. A survivor, a builder, a woman who'd turned grief into empire after my husband Robert died 10 years ago, leaving me with nothing but a mortgage and a dream. I'd built Hayes Properties from the ground up, $2.1 million in real estate spanning downtown Miami, luxury apartments in Coral Gables, and a pristine plot of land in Palm Beach that developers salivated over every quarter. I did it all for family. For my daughter Vanessa, for my grandchildren, Malcolm and Zara. Looking back now, I realize how foolish that sounds. The morning had started ordinarily enough. Vanessa arrived early, her heels clicking against the sterile hospital floors like a countdown timer I didn't know I should fear. She wore a red dress, designer, expensive, the kind she couldn't have afforded 6 months ago when her husband Derek supposedly lost his job at the accounting firm. "Mom," she'd said, taking my hand with those soft fingers I remembered from her childhood. "Everything's going to be fine. Dr. Evans is the best cardiac surgeon in Miami. In a few hours, you'll be good as new." Derek arrived shortly after, impeccable in his Armani suit, his Rolex catching the fluorescent lights. For 5 years, he'd been the son I never had. Attentive, respectful, always offering to help with my complicated finances. "Eleanor, you're such a sharp businesswoman," he'd say with that charming smile. "You should teach me your tricks." And I, like a fool, had been flattered. But that morning something felt off. Maybe it was the way Vanessa's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Maybe it was how Derek kept checking his phone, his jaw tight with tension. Or maybe it was the way Dr. Evans had emphasized the risks. 15% chance of complications, Eleanor. At your age, we need to be realistic. And I'd caught Vanessa's lips curling into something that wasn't quite concern. I'd pushed the thought away. "They're just worried," I told myself. "They love you." The nurses had prepared me in that special way they do before major surgery. The IV in my arm, the blood pressure cuff that squeezed every 15 minutes, the monitors beeping their mechanical lullaby. My room was spacious, private, with large windows that let in the golden Miami sunlight. Fresh white lilies sat on the nightstand, their perfume heavy and sweet. Derek had brought them that very morning. "How thoughtful," I'd said. "Now I wonder if they were meant for my funeral." Malcolm and Zara had rushed in before school, their small bodies crashing into me with that pure joy only children possess. Malcolm, 8 years old, wore his favorite Spider-Man shirt. Zara, 6, had on the pink dress I'd bought her for her birthday last month. "Grandma Eleanor," Zara squealed. "Mommy says you're getting your heart fixed so you can run with us again." I'd hugged them tight, breathing in their strawberry shampoo, memorizing the weight of their arms around my neck. But then Vanessa had pulled them away. Quickly. Too quickly. "Don't tire Grandma out," she'd said, her voice sharp. "She needs to rest." That wasn't like her. Vanessa had always encouraged the children to spend time with me. Every Sunday for the past 5 years, they'd come to my house. Derek would help me review property documents while Vanessa and the kids played in my garden. It was our ritual, our sacred family time. Except now I realized those Sundays had another purpose. Derek had been studying my finances, learning my passwords, gaining my trust, planning. Dr. Evans had come by around noon to review the procedure one final time. He'd been thorough, professional, explaining how they'd open my sternum, how long I'd be under anesthesia, what recovery would look like. But Derek's questions had been different. "What happens if there are complications?" he'd asked, leaning forward with an intensity that seemed excessive. "How long does it take to wake up from anesthesia? What's the likelihood of a coma? What about a vegetative state?" "Derek," I'd laughed nervously, "you're scaring me." "Just being thorough, Eleanor," he'd replied smoothly. "I want to make sure we understand all possible outcomes." Vanessa had chimed in. "Mom, you did sign the medical power of attorney, right? The one giving me authority to make decisions if you can't?" I had. 2 months ago, when Derek suggested it would be smart planning, I'd signed the papers in his office, trusting completely. Trusting. Now, at 2:30 p.m., I lay on the gurney outside the pre-op area, pretending to sleep because my nerves had exhausted me. The surgical team would come for me in 30 minutes. 30 minutes until they'd wheel me into that bright, cold operating room where machines would breathe for me and strangers would hold my life in their gloved hands. I should have been praying, thinking about Robert, waiting for me on the other side. Instead, I found myself thinking about that look in Vanessa's eyes when the doctor mentioned complications. That's when I heard them. Their voices drifted through the partially open door of the consultation room across the hall. At first, the words were muffled, indistinct, but then they grew closer, and I heard Derek's voice clearly, too clearly, charged with an emotion I'd never heard from him before. 3 hours, Vanessa. In 3 hours, it'll all be over. You have the documents ready, right? My heart, that failing organ they were about to repair, suddenly hammered against my ribs. Yes, honey. Vanessa's voice. My daughter's voice. But it sounded wrong. Cold, calculated, alien. The digital will is ready. As soon as she doesn't wake up from the anesthesia, or if she ends up incapacitated, we can proceed. The doctors already said complications are likely at her age. The world tilted. The ceiling lights blurred into white halos. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be my daughter talking about my death like it was a business transaction. Perfect, Derek continued, and I could hear the satisfaction in his voice, could almost see him rubbing his hands together. The downtown apartments, appraised at $1.3 million. The Palm Beach land, $600,000. The main house, another $200,000. We're looking at $2.1 million, Vanessa. We'll finally be free. Free. And the best part, Vanessa added, and here her voice broke slightly, betraying some buried emotion, is that no one will suspect anything. Natural complications from surgery. An elderly woman whose heart just gave out. I bit down on my lip hard enough to taste blood. Anything to keep from screaming. The metallic tang grounded me, kept me present in this nightmare that couldn't possibly be real. But it was real. Horribly, devastatingly real. What if something goes wrong? Vanessa asked, and for a moment, just a moment, I heard my daughter again. Uncertain, afraid. What if she survives without complications? What if she wakes up perfectly fine? Please, I thought, please let her back out. Please let her remember she's my daughter, that I'm her mother, that we're supposed to love each other. Derek's laugh shattered that hope. Don't worry, babe. I've already taken care of that too. His voice dropped lower, conspiratorial. I spoke with Tyrone. He's the night nurse on the cardiac recovery floor. I paid him $8,000 to accidentally administer an extra dose of morphine during your mom's recovery. It'll be impossible to detect in an autopsy. Just looks like a standard post-op complication. $8,000. They'd paid someone $8,000 to murder me. My hands started trembling uncontrollably. The IV line tugged at my vein. One of the monitors started beeping faster, responding to my elevated heart rate, and I forced myself to breathe slowly, deeply, to calm down before someone noticed. Perfect, Vanessa replied, and the relief in her voice, the genuine relief, made bile rise in my throat. So it doesn't matter what happens in surgery. One way or another, by tonight, Mom won't be with us anymore. And by tomorrow morning, we'll be rich, Derek finished. Finally fucking rich. And think about it, Vanessa. No more Sunday dinners listening to her repetitive stories about the good old days. No more pretending to care about her advice on our marriage. No more playing the perfect family. We'll be free. Every word was a knife between my ribs. Repetitive stories. Pretending to care. Playing perfect. For 5 years, I'd believed they loved me. I'd tried so hard to be a good mother, a good mother-in-law, a helpful grandmother. I'd shared everything. My home, my knowledge, my money, my heart. And it had all been a performance. A long, elaborate con to keep me trusting until the moment came to execute their plan. The only thing that bothers me, Vanessa said, her voice thoughtful, is Malcolm and Zara. What do we tell them about their grandmother? My grandchildren, my precious Malcolm and Zara. I thought of Malcolm's gap-toothed smile, the way he'd proudly shown me his math homework last Sunday. I thought of Zara's little hands in mine as we'd baked chocolate chip cookies in my kitchen, her face smudged with flour and joy. We tell them Grandma was very old, Derek said dismissively, that her heart just couldn't take it anymore, that she's in heaven watching over them. Kids forget quickly, Vanessa. In a few months, they won't even remember her face. And when they grow up, they'll just be grateful for the inheritance that paid for their expensive private schools and college. They won't even remember her face. Something inside me cracked then. Not my failing heart, but something deeper. The last remnants of the woman who'd walked into this hospital this morning, trusting and naive, shattered completely. Besides, Derek continued, his voice gaining momentum with excitement, with $2.1 million, we can finally move to Miami Beach like we've been planning. Get that condo on Ocean Drive. The kids will adapt. We can put them in that elite academy you've been researching. They'll have a completely different life, better than anything your mother could have given them. I love that idea, Vanessa said, and I could hear the genuine enthusiasm now, the dreaming. We could travel through Europe every summer, buy a vacation home in the Bahamas, dine at Michelin star restaurants every week. It would be perfect. Perfect. Their perfect life built on my corpse. And the funeral? Derek asked with chilling pragmatism. Something elegant? Or should we keep it simple? They were planning my funeral. While I lay here breathing, my heart still beating despite its flaws, they were planning my funeral. Something elegant but not too expensive, Vanessa replied immediately. We need to look appropriately grief-stricken, but we don't want to waste too much of the inheritance. A decent casket, nice flowers, and an emotional ceremony where we can cry convincingly in front of everyone, especially in front of Mom's lawyer. We need Jasmine Wright to believe we're devastated. Cry convincingly. They were going to rehearse crying at my funeral. I heard footsteps approaching down the corridor, the distinctive squeak of rubber-soled shoes that meant a nurse was coming. I quickly closed my eyes, forced my breathing to slow and deepen, made my face slack like I was sleeping. Mrs. Hayes? A gentle voice. I recognized it. Keisha, the nurse who'd been especially kind since I'd arrived. She was young, maybe 30, with warm brown eyes and box braids pinned up under her surgical cap. Mrs. Hayes, in about 10 minutes we need to take you to the OR. How are you feeling? I heard Derek and Vanessa rush into the room, their footsteps quick, urgent. When I carefully opened my eyes just slightly, I saw their faces transform, like actors slipping into character. Derek's expression melted into concern. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. Oh, Mom, you're awake, Vanessa said, hurrying to my side. We were just in the hallway, talking about how nervous we are. How are you feeling? Are you scared? The performance was flawless. If I hadn't heard their conversation 2 minutes ago, I would have believed every word, every gesture, every tear threatening to fall from my daughter's eyes. I'm okay, I managed to whisper, fighting to keep my voice steady. Just tired. I think I dozed off for a minute. That's good, Derek said, taking my other hand. His fingers felt cold, reptilian, even though his smile was warm and reassuring. Eleanor, I want you to know that Vanessa and I will be right here waiting when you come out. We've cleared our entire schedule. We're not leaving until we know you're okay. Lies. All lies. They'd be waiting, yes. Waiting to hear I'd died on the table, or that I'd fallen into a coma, or that Tyrone had successfully murdered me with an accidental morphine overdose. Keisha began preparing my gurney, checking my IV lines, adjusting the blankets, verifying my ID bracelet against her tablet. The normal pre-surgery protocol, except nothing about this was normal anymore. Are you ready, Mrs. Hayes? Keisha asked with that calming professionalism that characterized the best nurses. No, I wasn't ready to die. I wasn't ready for my own daughter to inherit my life's work as a reward for planning my murder. I wasn't ready for my grandchildren to grow up thinking I'd simply passed away peacefully when the truth was so much darker. But a plan was forming in my mind. Desperate, wild, maybe impossible. But it was something. Keisha, I said softly, making sure my voice was weak enough to sound vulnerable but clear enough to be heard. Could I ask you a favor? A very important favor? The nurse leaned closer, her expression concerned. Of course, Mrs. Hayes. What do you need? Behind her, I saw Derek and Vanessa exchange a quick glance, alert, suspicious, like predators sensing their prey might be wising up. I need to use the restroom, I said. Before surgery, I know it's last minute, but... Oh, Keisha smiled with relief. She'd probably been expecting a more complicated request. Of course, let me help you. I'll come with you, Mom, Vanessa said immediately, already moving toward the gurney. No! The word came out sharper than I intended. I softened my tone, forced a weak smile. Honey, I'm a little embarrassed. It's a bathroom situation. Woman to woman, you understand? Vanessa hesitated, clearly torn between maintaining her cover and preventing whatever I might do unsupervised. Derek put a hand on her shoulder. Let your mom have some privacy, babe. Keisha will be with her. Right, Keisha? Absolutely, Keisha confirmed. Don't worry, Mr. Thompson. I'll take good care of her. As Keisha helped me off the gurney, my legs were shakier than I'd expected, whether from fear or the pre-op medication, I couldn't tell. I caught one final look at Derek and Vanessa. They stood together by the window, and in that brief moment when they thought I wasn't watching, their masks slipped. Derek's face was tight with barely concealed frustration. Vanessa chewed her bottom lip, a nervous habit from childhood that only emerged when she was anxious. They knew something was wrong. They just didn't know what yet. Keisha supported me as we walked slowly toward the private bathroom attached to my pre-op room. Once inside with the door closed, the nurse helped me sit on the small bench and asked, Mrs. Hayes, are you feeling okay? You seem tense. This was it, my one chance. I had to trust someone, and Keisha's eyes, those warm, genuine eyes, were my best hope. Keisha, I whispered, grabbing her hand with both of mine. I need your help. This is going to sound crazy, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that? She looked alarmed. Mrs. Hayes, what's wrong? Are you having chest pain? Should I call Dr. Evans? No, listen to me very carefully. I pulled her closer, lowering my voice even further. I just overheard my daughter and son-in-law planning to kill me. They've bribed a nurse named Tyrone to give me a morphine overdose during recovery. I am not safe in this hospital. I need to get out. Right now. Keisha's eyes went wide. She opened her mouth, closed it, looked at the door, then back at me. Mrs. Hayes, she said slowly, carefully, those are very serious accusations. Are you absolutely certain about what you heard? Sometimes the pre-op medications can cause— I'm not hallucinating, I cut her off. I heard every word. They want my $2.1 million estate. They've planned every detail. The fake documents, the bribed nurse, the funeral arrangements. They even discussed what to tell my grandchildren after I'm dead. Tears were streaming down my face now, and these were real. Not the performance tears Vanessa had practiced, but genuine terror and grief. Keisha stared at me for a long moment. I could see her mind working, weighing my words against her professional training, against the impossibility of what I was claiming. Then she squeezed my hands. Okay, she said quietly. Okay, Mrs. Hayes. What do you need me to do? Relief crashed over me so powerfully I almost sobbed. I need to call my lawyer. Jasmine Wright. She's the only person I trust completely. Can you get me to a phone? Please, Keisha. I'm begging you. The nurse thought for another moment, then nodded. There's a doctor's consultation office 2 doors down. It has a landline. I can take you there, but we only have a few minutes before Dr. Evans will be asking for you. A few minutes is all I need. Keisha helped me back to my feet. We exited the bathroom, and I saw Derek and Vanessa immediately straighten, their eyes tracking our movements. Everything okay? Derek called. Just fine, Keisha replied with professional cheerfulness. Mrs. Hayes just needs a moment to collect herself. Pre-surgery jitters. We'll be right back. She guided me past them, down the corridor, and into a small office that smelled like coffee and antiseptic. The moment the door closed behind us, Keisha handed me the phone. I'll stand guard outside, she whispered. If anyone comes, I'll knock twice. You'll have maybe 3 minutes. Thank you, I breathed. Thank you so much. My hands trembled so badly I could barely dial Jasmine's number. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Please answer. Please, please answer. On the 4th ring, I heard her familiar voice. Jasmine Wright, attorney at law. Jasmine, my voice cracked. It's Eleanor. Eleanor Hayes. I'm at St. Joseph's Hospital, and I need your help right now. It's life or death. There was a pause. Then, Eleanor? What's happening? Are you okay? And then I told her everything, the words spilling out in a desperate rush, the conversation I'd overheard, the murder plot, the bribed nurse, the fake documents, the $2.1 million motive. When I finished, there was silence on the other end. For a terrible moment, I thought maybe Jasmine didn't believe me either. Then she spoke, her voice transformed from friendly lawyer to fierce protector. Eleanor Hayes, you listen to me very carefully. Do not let them take you into that operating room. I don't care what excuse you have to make, but you refuse that surgery. Do you understand me? Yes, I whispered. I'm sending my investigator, Deshaun Parker, to the hospital right now. He'll be there in 15 minutes. In the meantime, you stay in public spaces. Stay where there are witnesses. And Eleanor? Yes? If you feel like you're in immediate danger, if they try to force you into surgery or give you any medication, you scream. You make the biggest scene of your life. Better they think you're crazy than dead. I heard 2 quick knocks on the door. Keisha's warning. She has to go, I told Jasmine. Someone's coming. 15 minutes, Eleanor. Hold on for 15 minutes. We're going to get you out of there. I hung up just as the door opened and Derek appeared in the doorway, his expression concerned but his eyes calculating. Eleanor, is everything all right? Keisha said you needed a moment, but Dr. Evans is asking for you. The surgical team is ready. I stood up, my legs steadier now that I had a plan, now that I had hope. Derek, I said, meeting his eyes directly. I've changed my mind. I want to postpone the surgery. His face went perfectly still. What? I want to postpone. I need more time to prepare mentally. I'd like to schedule it for next week. I could see the wheels turning in his head, see him trying to figure out if I suspected something, or if this was just normal pre-surgery panic. Eleanor, he said carefully, stepping into the room and closing the door behind him. That's very unusual. The surgical team is already prepped. The anesthesiologist is waiting. Your heart condition doesn't allow for much delay. It's just 1 week, I replied. Surely that's not too dangerous. But why? What's changed in the last 30 minutes? Because 30 minutes ago I discovered my daughter and son-in-law are planning to murder me, I thought. Because 30 minutes ago my entire world shattered. But what I said was, I'm scared, Derek. I know that's silly, but I'm terrified. I need a few more days to make peace with this. He studied my face, searching for cracks in my story. Finally, he nodded slowly. All right, if that's what you need. But Eleanor, we should at least talk to Dr. Evans about whether postponing is medically advisable. Of course, I agreed. We walked back to the pre-op area together, and with every step I felt Derek's eyes on me, felt his suspicion growing. When we reached the gurney where Vanessa waited, I saw her face light up with false hope. Hope that I'd changed my mind about postponing, that their plan could proceed as scheduled. Dr. Evans appeared moments later, concern creasing his weathered face. Mrs. Hayes, I understand you want to postpone the surgery? Before I could answer, the elevator at the end of the corridor dinged, and a tall black man in a leather jacket stepped out. Deshaun Parker. Even from a distance, he commanded attention. 6'5", broad-shouldered, moving with the confidence of someone who'd spent years in law enforcement. Behind him came Jasmine Wright, her silver hair pulled back in an elegant bun, her pantsuit immaculate, her expression fierce enough to stop a charging bull. Eleanor Hayes, Jasmine's voice rang out across the pre-op area. Don't you dare get on that operating table. Every head in the corridor turned. Nurses paused mid-step. Derek and Vanessa froze. Jasmine walked straight to me, Deshaun flanking her like a guardian angel, and took both my hands in hers. Eleanor, you're leaving with us. Right now. Now wait just a minute, Derek interjected, stepping between us. Who the hell are you? I'm Jasmine Wright, Mrs. Hayes' attorney of 20 years. And you are Derek Thompson, the man who just tried to have my client murdered. The color drained from Derek's face. Behind him, Vanessa made a small sound, something between a gasp and a whimper. That's insane, Derek sputtered. I don't know what Eleanor has told you, but I didn't tell her anything, I said, my voice stronger now, clearer. I didn't need to. I heard you, Derek. I heard everything. The $8,000 for Tyrone. The $2.1 million you were so excited about. The plans to move to Miami Beach after I was dead. The funeral arrangements. All of it. Vanessa's face crumpled. Mom, don't. I held up my hand, stopping her. Don't you dare call me Mom right now. Dr. Evans looked between all of us, completely lost. I'm sorry, but what exactly is going on here? What's going on, Jasmine said crisply, is that Mrs. Hayes is exercising her right to refuse medical treatment. She's leaving this hospital immediately. If anyone tries to stop her, I will have them arrested for attempted kidnapping and conspiracy to commit murder. This is ridiculous, Derek said, but his voice lacked conviction. He knew I'd heard everything. Deshaun stepped forward, towering over Derek. Mr. Thompson, I strongly suggest you step aside. Mrs. Hayes is leaving. Now. For a moment, I thought Derek might try to physically stop us. His jaw clenched, his fists tightened at his sides. But then he saw something in Deshawn's eyes, something that told him this man had dealt with far more dangerous people than a cowardly would-be murderer with gambling debts. Derek stepped aside. Jasmine helped me off the gurney. My legs were shaking, but I refused to show weakness. Not now. Not in front of them. "Eleanor, please," Vanessa sobbed. "Please let me explain. It's not what you think. Derek, he—" "Save it for the police," Jasmine cut her off. "They'll want to hear all about your plans." As we walked toward the elevator, me flanked by Jasmine and Deshawn, leaving behind the gurney and the surgical team and the daughter who'd planned my death, I heard Vanessa collapse into sobs behind us. Good, I thought coldly. Let her cry. Let her feel even a fraction of the pain she was willing to cause me. The elevator doors closed, sealing me away from the hospital, from the surgery that would have been my execution, from the family I thought I had. As we descended, I looked at my reflection in the polished steel doors. A 72-year-old woman in a hospital gown and paper slippers, but alive, awake, aware. "Where are we going?" I asked quietly. "Somewhere safe," Jasmine replied. "Somewhere they can't touch you. And then, Eleanor, we're going to make sure they pay for every word they said." The elevator reached the ground floor, and the doors opened onto the busy hospital lobby. I stepped out into my new life, the life I'd saved by refusing to trust, by choosing to fight, by deciding that even at 72, I was worth saving. Behind me, somewhere in that hospital, Vanessa and Derek were probably panicking, probably trying to figure out how much I'd heard, probably calculating their next move. But I was already 3 steps ahead, and I was done being the victim. Jasmine's penthouse overlooked downtown Miami like a fortress surveying its domain. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the city sprawling beneath us, glittering high-rises, the distant turquoise of Biscayne Bay, palm trees swaying in the afternoon breeze. It was beautiful, peaceful, and exactly 17 floors away from the chaos I'd just escaped. I sat on her leather sofa, still wearing that humiliating hospital gown under the coat Deshawn had draped over my shoulders. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Every few minutes, my mind would replay fragments of the conversation I'd overheard. By tonight, Mom won't be with us anymore, and I'd feel that spike of adrenaline and terror all over again. "Here," Jasmine said gently, pressing a cup of chamomile tea into my trembling hands. "Drink this, Eleanor. You need to calm down before we can think clearly." I took a sip, barely tasting it. My daughter, Jasmine, my own daughter, wanted me dead. Jasmine sat beside me, her hand on my shoulder. At 65, she'd been practicing law for 40 years, and she'd seen everything. Messy divorces, corporate fraud, family betrayals. But even her eyes held a shadow of shock at what had happened today. "I know, honey, I know. But you escaped. You're safe now. And that's what matters right now. Keeping you safe and making sure they can't hurt you or anyone else." Deshawn Parker stood by the windows, his phone pressed to his ear, speaking in low tones. At 6'5", with shoulders that strained against his leather jacket and a face that looked carved from stone, he was intimidating. But when he'd helped me out of the hospital, his touch had been gentle, his voice kind. He'd been FBI for 15 years before becoming a private investigator, Jasmine had told me in the car. If anyone can protect you and dig up dirt on Derek, it's Deshawn. Now he ended his call and turned to face us, his expression grave. "Mrs. Hayes, I need your permission to do a deep dive into Derek and Vanessa's finances. Everything. Bank accounts, credit cards, phone records, emails. If we're going to build a case against them, we need evidence beyond what you overheard." I nodded, not trusting my voice. "Good." He pulled out a sleek laptop and sat in the armchair across from me. "Jasmine told me you gave Derek access to your accounts about 6 months ago." "Yes." The word tasted bitter. "He said he wanted to help me organize my portfolio, make sure my investments were sound. He's an accountant, was an accountant. He seemed so knowledgeable, so trustworthy." "They always do," Deshawn said, not unkindly. His fingers flew across the keyboard. "That's how con artists work. They find your vulnerabilities and exploit them. Your vulnerability was wanting family, wanting to help your daughter and her husband. There's no shame in that." But there was shame. Hot, burning shame that I'd been so blind, so stupid, so desperate for family connection that I'd handed over the keys to my kingdom without question. Deshawn's eyes narrowed as he studied his screen. Okay, I'm into Derek's bank accounts. Let me just... He scrolled, clicked, his expression darkening with each passing second. Jesus Christ. What? Jasmine moved to look over his shoulder. What did you find? Derek Thompson has a secret account, opened 8 months ago under an LLC he created, and there have been regular transfers from Mrs. Hayes' business account. $5,000 here, $8,000 there, $12,000 the month after. It adds up to, he did rapid calculations, $280,000. He's stolen $280,000 from you over the past 8 months, Mrs. Hayes. The number hit me like a physical blow. $280,000. Money I'd earned through decades of hard work, smart investments, calculated risks. Money I'd planned to leave for Malcolm and Zara's education, their future. Those property repairs that Derek said were urgent, I whispered. The ones that cost $35,000? Never happened, Deshawn confirmed. I can see the invoices he created, completely fake. Same with the investment opportunities he convinced you to fund. That money went straight into his pocket. Jasmine's jaw tightened. That's embezzlement and fraud. That alone is enough to put him away for years. There's more, Deshawn said, still scrolling. His face had gone carefully blank, the expression of someone who'd just discovered something he wished he hadn't. Oh, this is bad. What now? I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. How much worse could it get? Deshawn turned the laptop toward us. On the screen was a bank transfer statement, $15,000 sent from Derek's secret account to someone named Madison Pierce. The memo line read, "For the baby." Who's Madison Pierce? I asked. Deshawn clicked through several more screens, pulling up what looked like social media profiles, email exchanges, text messages. When he finally turned the laptop around again, I saw a young woman smiling at the camera, maybe 28, blonde, beautiful, her hand resting on a visibly pregnant belly. Madison Pierce is Derek's girlfriend, Deshawn said quietly. She's 6 months pregnant with his child, and according to these text messages, he scrolled to show us, Derek has been promising to leave Vanessa and marry Madison as soon as he gets his hands on the inheritance. The room spun. I gripped the arm of the sofa, fighting the nausea rising in my throat. Jasmine leaned closer, reading the messages aloud. Derek, baby, just a few more months. Once the old lady's money comes through, I'll divorce Vanessa and we can be together for real. Madison, you promise? You're not just stringing me along? Derek, I swear on our baby's life. Vanessa means nothing to me. She's just a means to an end. You and our child. That's my real family. Madison, I love you so much. I can't wait to be Mrs. Thompson. Derek, Mrs. Thompson number 2, the upgrade model. I couldn't breathe. For a moment, I thought I might actually be having the heart attack that my failing organ had been threatening for months. Eleanor, breathe, Jasmine commanded, kneeling in front of me. In through your nose, out through your mouth. That's it. Breathe. When my vision cleared, I looked at Deshawn. Does Vanessa know about Madison and the baby? I doubt it, he replied. Derek's been very careful. Different phone for his communications with Madison, different email account, all payments from the secret LLC. He's been planning this for a long time. Steal your money, get rid of Vanessa, start his new life with Madison. The full scope of Derek's betrayal crashed over me. He hadn't just manipulated me and my daughter for money. He'd been cheating on Vanessa, planning to abandon her and their children, all while convincing her to help murder her own mother. That son of a bitch, Jasmine hissed. That absolute piece of... Her phone rang, cutting off her curse. She glanced at the screen and her eyebrows rose. It's the hospital. St. Joseph's administration office. She put it on speaker. Ms. Wright? This is Carol Chen from St. Joseph's Hospital Administration. We have a situation. Vanessa Hayes Thompson is in our lobby demanding to see her mother. She's quite distraught. She's claiming that Mrs. C. Eleanor Hayes was kidnapped from our facility and is being held against her will. She's threatening to call the police and the media. Jasmine and I exchanged glances. Mrs. Hayes is with me of her own free will, Jasmine said crisply. She's a competent adult who chose to refuse surgery and leave your facility. No kidnapping occurred. I understand, but Mrs. Hayes Thompson is causing quite a scene. She has her children with her, 2 young children who are very upset. She's saying she just wants to know her mother is safe. Malcolm and Zara. My heart clenched. They must be so confused, so frightened. Tell her, I started, but Jasmine held up a hand. Tell Mrs. Hayes Thompson that her mother is safe and under no circumstances wishes to see her or speak with her at this time. If she continues to harass the hospital staff or attempts to locate Mrs. Hayes, we will be forced to file for a restraining order. There was a pause. Understood. We'll relay that message. After Jasmine hung up, I slumped back against the sofa. She brought Malcolm and Zara. She's using my grandchildren as emotional blackmail. Classic manipulator tactic, Deshawn said. Use the innocent to tug at heartstrings. Don't fall for it, Mrs. Hayes. But they're children. They didn't do anything wrong. They must be so scared. My phone buzzed. I'd forgotten I even had it. Keisha had grabbed my purse before we left the hospital. I pulled it out and saw Vanessa's name on the screen. Then another text. And another. They were coming in rapid-fire succession. Mom, please answer me. I know you're angry, but please let me explain. It wasn't my idea. Derek forced me. I was scared. He threatened Malcolm and Zara. Please, Mom, I need you. The kids are asking for you. They're crying. How can you do this to your grandchildren? You're being selfish and cruel. Answer me. Don't respond, Jasmine warned. Anything you say can be twisted and used against you. Let her spiral. But one message stopped me cold. Mom, Derek is dangerous. More dangerous than you know. I'm scared of what he'll do now that the plan failed. Please, I need to talk to you. Not for me, for Malcolm and Zara. They're in danger. I showed the message to Deshawn and Jasmine. Could be a manipulation, Deshawn said. Could also be genuine. If Derek really is in debt to dangerous people and his plan just fell apart, he might do something desperate. What kind of dangerous people? I asked. Deshawn pulled up more screens. Give me a minute. He worked in silence, his expression growing darker. Finally, he sat back, rubbing his face. Okay, this is bigger than I thought. Derek Thompson isn't just a gambling addict. He's $400,000 in debt to the Rizzo family. Tony Rizzo specifically. The name sent ice through my veins. Tony Rizzo? Antonio Rizzo's son? Deshawn looked surprised. You know him? I know of him. Old memories surfaced. Terrible memories. 20 years ago, my husband Robert sued Antonio Rizzo for real estate fraud. It was a huge case. Rizzo had been running a Ponzi scheme, selling the same properties to multiple buyers. Robert's lawsuit brought the whole thing down. Rizzo lost everything. His business collapsed. His reputation was destroyed. I swallowed hard. He committed suicide 2 years later. And Tony Rizzo inherited his father's debts, his father's shame, and apparently his father's grudge, Deshawn said grimly. Tony runs an illegal casino operation. Derek started gambling there about 2 years ago. At first, Tony let him win, let him get hooked. Then the win stopped and the losses piled up. Jasmine was already ahead of him. Tony deliberately targeted Derek. This wasn't random. He knew Derek was married to Robert Hayes' daughter. He set this whole thing up as revenge. The conspiracy went so much deeper than I'd imagined. This wasn't just about greed or desperation. This was about vengeance. Cold, calculated, multi-generational vengeance. But Derek doesn't know that, I said slowly. Derek thinks he just got unlucky gambling. He doesn't know he was being played. Probably not, Deshawn agreed, which means he's both a perpetrator and a victim. Doesn't excuse what he tried to do to you, but it adds a layer of complexity. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Vanessa. Mom, Derek has a gun. He keeps it in his car. He's been acting strange, paranoid. Please, I'm begging you. Let me come see you. Let me tell you everything. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to understand what really happened. I looked at Jasmine. What if she's telling the truth? What if she really was forced into this? Then she should have come to you from the beginning, Jasmine said firmly. She should have told you Derek was in trouble, that bad people were threatening your family. Instead, she chose to plot your murder. Eleanor, I know she's your daughter, but I want to see her, I said. Eleanor, not alone, with you and Deshawn present, somewhere public, but I need to hear her side. I need to know if my daughter is a monster or just a coward. Jasmine and Deshawn exchanged a long look. This is a bad idea, Deshawn said. Probably, I agreed, but I'm doing it anyway. We chose a coffee shop in Coconut Grove, public, busy, with multiple exits. Deshawn arrived early to scope it out, checking sightlines, noting security cameras. He positioned himself at a table near the back, close enough to intervene if needed, but far enough to give us the illusion of privacy. Jasmine sat beside me, her posture rigid with protective fury. When Vanessa walked through the door, I almost didn't recognize her. My daughter, my beautiful, put-together daughter who never left the house without perfect makeup and designer clothes, looked destroyed. Her hair hung limp and unwashed. Her eyes were swollen nearly shut from crying. She wore yoga pants and an old t-shirt, and she moved like someone who'd aged 20 years in 6 hours. When she saw me, her face crumpled. "Mom," she whispered, starting toward our table. "Sit," Jasmine commanded, pointing to the chair across from us. "And don't touch her." Vanessa flinched but obeyed. Up close I could see she'd been crying recently. Her mascara was smudged, her nose red and raw. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You have to believe me." "I don't have to believe anything," I said coldly. "You have 15 minutes to explain yourself. And Vanessa, I'll know if you're lying. I always know." That was true. I'd always been able to tell when she was lying, a slight twitch in her left eye, the way she'd touch her neck. She was doing it now, her hand fluttering to her throat. She took a shaky breath. "Derek told me, 6 months ago, he told me he'd gotten in trouble. Gambling debt. He said he owed some dangerous people $400,000, and they were threatening to hurt Malcolm and Zara if he didn't pay up." "So you decided to murder me for the inheritance?" I asked flatly. "No. God, no. At first I wanted to come to you, to ask for help. But Derek said, he said you'd never give us that much money, that you'd cut us off for being irresponsible. And I believed him because..." She swallowed hard. "Because I know I haven't been the best daughter. I know I've been distant, critical. I thought maybe you wouldn't help us. So instead of asking, you chose patricide." "It wasn't like that. Derek convinced me it was the only way. He showed me pictures of these men following Malcolm to school. He showed me messages threatening to kidnap Zara. I was terrified, Mom. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. All I could think about was my babies being hurt." "When did the murder plot start?" Jasmine asked sharply. Vanessa's hand touched her neck again. "About 3 months ago. Derek said your heart condition was getting worse, that you probably only had a year or 2 left anyway. He said we'd just be speeding up the inevitable, that it would be a mercy, really, so you wouldn't suffer." The rationalization made me sick. How easily she'd convinced herself that murdering me was actually kindness. "And you believed that?" I asked. "I wanted to believe it," Vanessa said, tears streaming down her face. "Because the alternative was admitting I was willing to kill my own mother for money. And I couldn't face that truth, so I kept telling myself Derek was right, that you were old and sick anyway, that Malcolm and Zara's lives mattered more than yours." At least she was being honest now. Brutally, horribly honest. "Did Derek ever mention a woman named Madison Pierce?" I asked. Vanessa's face went blank with confusion. "Who?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos Deshawn had found. Madison and Derek together, Madison's pregnant belly, the text messages calling Vanessa a means to an end. I watched my daughter's face as she read, watched confusion turn to shock, shock to horror, horror to something that looked like her soul dying. He has another woman? That's his baby?" 6 months pregnant, I confirmed. "He's been planning to leave you as soon as he got my money. You were never his partner in this, Vanessa. You were his patsy. He was going to take the inheritance, divorce you, and start a new life with Madison and their child." Vanessa stared in the phone screen, her mouth opening and closing soundlessly. Then she made a noise, a broken, animalistic sound of pure anguish, and buried her face in her hands. People at nearby tables turned to stare. "He doesn't love me," she sobbed. "He never loved me. Oh God, what have I done? What have I done?" For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something other than anger toward my daughter. I felt pity. "Vanessa," I said quietly, "did Derek ever physically threaten you? Did he ever hurt you?" She looked up, her face wet and destroyed. He pushed me once. Last month when I said I couldn't go through with it. He pushed me against the wall and said if I backed out, he'd tell the police it was all my idea, that I'd manipulated him, and that either way, the people he owed money to would come for Malcolm and Zara." Did he show you proof these people exist? Deshawn asked from his table. Photos of them? Direct threats? Vanessa shook her head slowly. Just the pictures of men near Malcolm's school, but they could have been anyone. Just men walking by. I realize that now. He played you, I said. Derek manufactured a crisis, isolated you, made you feel like murder was your only option. That's classic domestic abuse combined with manipulation. But I still chose it, Vanessa said, her voice breaking. You heard us talking, Mom. I was enthusiastic about spending your money. I talked about Miami Beach and traveling Europe. I'm not innocent. I'm a monster. You're both, Jasmine said bluntly. You're a victim of Derek's manipulation, and you're also a grown woman who agreed to murder her mother. Both things can be true. Vanessa looked at me with desperate, pleading eyes. Mom, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know what I did is unforgivable, but please, please let me help you now. Let me help you take Derek down. I'll testify against him. I'll tell the police everything. I'll accept whatever punishment I deserve. Just please, protect Malcolm and Zara. They're innocent in all this. I studied my daughter's face, searching for the little girl I'd raised. The child who'd cried when she accidentally stepped on a caterpillar. The teenager who'd volunteered at homeless shelters. The young woman who'd wept tears of joy when Malcolm was born. She was still in there, somewhere beneath the terrible choices and the weakness and the selfishness. If you want to protect Malcolm and Zara, I said slowly, then you're going to do exactly what I say. No arguments, no negotiations. Understood? Vanessa nodded frantically. Anything. I'll do anything. First, you're going to wear a wire and get Derek to confess on tape. Everything. The murder plot, the gambling debts, the bribed nurse, all of it. Her eyes widened with fear. He'll know. He always knows when I'm lying. Then you'd better give the performance of your life, I said coldly. Because if you don't, both of you are going to prison, and Malcolm and Zara will end up in foster care. The threat landed exactly as I'd intended. Vanessa went pale. Second, I continued, after we have his confession, you will turn yourself in to the police. You'll tell them everything, take full responsibility for your part, and cooperate completely with their investigation. I will, I promise. And third, I leaned forward, you will never ever ask me for forgiveness. You'll spend the rest of your life earning redemption, not for me, but for your children. Do you understand? Vanessa nodded, tears flowing freely. Yes, Mom, yes, I understand. 2 days later, we had everything we needed. Vanessa had worn the wire Deshawn provided, a tiny device hidden in her bra, and she'd gotten Derek's confession. She'd played her role perfectly, telling Derek I'd calmed down and was willing to talk if he'd just explain the financial situation. Derek, confident and arrogant, had bragged about every detail of his plan. The recording was damning. Not just his words, but the glee in his voice, the satisfaction of a predator who thought he'd won. Now, 72 hours after my escape from the hospital, I stood in the conference room of the Four Seasons Hotel, preparing to destroy the man who'd tried to destroy me. The room was packed with reporters, local news, national news, true crime podcasters, even a crew from CNN. They'd been told to expect a major announcement regarding attempted murder and elder financial abuse. The media loved a good scandal, and this one had everything. Wealthy elderly woman, scheming family members, murder plots, betrayal. It was catnip for the 24-hour news cycle. Jasmine stood at the podium, commanding the room with her presence. Thank you all for coming, she began. My name is Jasmine Wright, and I represent Mrs. Eleanor Hayes, a 72-year-old businesswoman and real estate developer here in Miami. 3 days ago, Mrs. Hayes discovered that her daughter and son-in-law were plotting to murder her during routine heart surgery in order to inherit her $2.1 million estate. She's here today to tell her story. Cameras flashed as I walked to the podium. I'd dressed carefully, a navy suit, my silver hair styled, minimal makeup. I wanted to look strong, dignified, credible. Good morning, I said, my voice steady despite the terror thrumming through my veins. My name is Eleanor Hayes. I'm here today because 30 minutes before my scheduled surgery, I overheard a conversation that saved my life. I told them everything. The hospital hallway, the whispered conspiracy, the bribed nurse, the fake documents, the $280,000 Derek had already stolen. Every detail, clear and precise, while cameras rolled and reporters scribbled notes. My son-in-law, Derek Thompson, wasn't just trying to kill me for money, I continued. He'd been systematically stealing from me for months. He had a secret girlfriend pregnant with his child. And most importantly, he'd manipulated my daughter into believing she had no choice but to help him. That's when Vanessa walked out. The room erupted. Reporters surged forward with microphones and cameras. Questions flew from every direction. Vanessa stood beside me at the podium, her face pale but resolute. "My name is Vanessa Hayes Thompson," she said, her voice shaking. "And I'm guilty of conspiracy to commit murder." The room went completely silent. I want every person watching this to understand. My mother is telling the truth. My husband Derek manipulated me, lied to me, and convinced me that killing my own mother was the only way to protect my children. I believed him because I was weak, because I was scared, because I wanted to believe his lies. She looked directly into the cameras. "But I'm not a victim. I'm a criminal. I agreed to let my mother die. I didn't stop the plan. And even though I was being manipulated, I made that choice. I have to own that." Tears streamed down her face, but her voice never wavered. "I'm turning myself into the police after this press conference. I'm going to testify against Derek Thompson. I'm going to accept whatever punishment the justice system decides I deserve. Because my mother didn't deserve what we tried to do to her. And Malcolm and Zara, my children, they deserve to know that even when you make terrible mistakes, you face the consequences." A reporter shouted, "Where is Derek Thompson now?" Jasmine stepped back to the podium. "Mr. Thompson was arrested this morning at the home of his girlfriend, Madison Pierce. He's been charged with conspiracy to commit murder, embezzlement, fraud, and attempted bribery of a medical professional. The nurse he attempted to bribe, Tyrone Mitchell, is cooperating with authorities." Another reporter, "Mrs. Hayes, will you forgive your daughter?" All eyes turned to me. I looked at Vanessa, really looked at her. At the daughter I'd raised, who'd betrayed me, who was now trying to make it right in the only way she knew how. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Forgiveness isn't something you grant in a moment. It's something you work toward over years, maybe a lifetime. Vanessa will have to earn redemption, not from me, but from herself and her children. Whether I eventually forgive her, we'll see." "What about your grandchildren?" "Malcolm and Zara are innocent," I said firmly. "I've already established trust funds for their education and future. Their mother's choices will not define their lives. They will be cared for, protected, and loved." The questions continued for another 20 minutes. Then, just as we were wrapping up, the doors at the back of the room burst open. Derek Thompson stumbled in, flanked by police officers, his hands cuffed behind his back. "This is bullshit!" he screamed, his face red with rage. "Eleanor is senile. She's making this up. Vanessa is being manipulated." The cameras swung toward him, capturing every second. "Mr. Thompson, you need to calm down," one officer said. "That crazy old bitch is lying. I never—" "Vanessa, tell them the truth." Vanessa looked at him, at the man she'd loved, married, had children with, almost committed murder for. Her face was empty of everything except contempt. "The truth is that you're a liar, Derek, a manipulator, a thief, and I was stupid enough to believe you." She pulled out her phone and held it up. "This is the recording I made 2 days ago. Every word of your confession. The police already have a copy." Derek's face went from red to white. You bitch. You fucking—" "That's enough," the officer said, dragging him toward the exit. "Mr. Thompson, anything else you say will be used against you in court." As they hauled him away, Derek twisted to look back at me. His eyes burned with pure hatred. "This isn't over, you old cunt," he screamed. "You think you've won? You have no idea what's coming." The threat sent chills down my spine. But I stood tall, facing the cameras, showing no fear. "Actually, Derek," I said clearly, "it is over. You lost." The doors closed behind him, and the room erupted into chaos. Reporters shouting questions, cameras flashing, producers yelling into phones. Jasmine put her hand on my shoulder. "Let's get you out of here." As we left through a side exit, I caught a glimpse of our press conference on one of the hotel's TV screens. The headline read, "Elderly Woman Exposes Family Murder Plot." We'd won this battle. But Derek's final threat lingered in my mind like poison. You have no idea what's coming. What did he mean? And more importantly, what had we just set in motion? 3 months after the press conference, I sat in courtroom 4B of the Miami-Dade Criminal Court, watching justice unfold in slow motion. Derek Thompson stood before Judge Patricia Okonkwo, his expensive suit replaced by an orange jumpsuit, his confident swagger gone. His lawyer, a weary-looking public defender named Marcus Chen, had tried everything, claiming I was senile, arguing Derek was the real victim, suggesting Vanessa had manipulated him. None of it had worked. The evidence was overwhelming. The recording Vanessa made, Tyrone Mitchell's testimony about the bribery attempt, bank records showing the $280,000 theft, text messages with Madison Pierce planning their future with my money, and my own testimony, clear, detailed, unshakable. Judge Okonkwo adjusted her glasses and looked down at Derek with the expression of someone examining something particularly unpleasant on the bottom of her shoe. "Mr. Thompson," she said, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority, "I've been on this bench for 23 years. I've seen many criminals come through these doors, but rarely have I encountered someone who displayed such callous disregard for human life, combined with such breathtaking arrogance." Derek stared at the floor, his jaw clenched. "You didn't just attempt to murder your wife's mother for financial gain," the judge continued. "You systematically stole from her. You manipulated your wife through fear and lies. You betrayed the trust of an elderly woman who welcomed you into her family. And according to the evidence presented, you did all of this while planning to abandon your wife and children for another woman." She paused, letting the words sink in. "The prosecution has recommended 12 years. I'm sentencing you to 15 years in state prison, with no possibility of parole for 10. In addition, you will pay full restitution of $280,000 to Mrs. Hayes, plus punitive damages. You are hereby permanently barred from any contact with Mrs. Hayes or her family." Derek's head snapped up. 15 years? That's justice, Mr. Thompson. Be grateful it isn't more." The bailiff led him away. As Derek passed our row, he turned and looked directly at me. The hatred in his eyes was so intense I actually flinched. But then he was gone, and I could breathe again. Vanessa's sentencing had happened the week before. Because of her cooperation, her genuine remorse, and her status as a domestic abuse victim, the psychologist's evaluation had confirmed Derek's pattern of manipulation and coercive control. She'd received 3 years of probation and 500 hours of community service. The judge had been clear. "Mrs. Hayes Thompson, you were manipulated, but you still made choices. You're getting a second chance that many don't receive. Use it wisely." Now, as I left the courthouse with Jasmine and Deshawn flanking me like guardian angels, I felt a strange emptiness. We'd won. Derek was going to prison. Vanessa was facing consequences. So why didn't I feel satisfied? "Because justice doesn't heal," Jasmine said quietly, as if reading my mind. "It just balances the scales. Healing is different work." She was right, as always. Malcolm and Zara were waiting at Jasmine's penthouse when I arrived. They'd been staying with me for the past 3 months while Vanessa underwent court-mandated therapy and tried to rebuild her life. "Grandma Eleanor," Zara launched herself at me, her small arms wrapping around my waist. At 7 years old, she still believed the world was fundamentally good, that bad things happened, but people could be fixed. I hoped she'd never lose that innocence. Malcolm was more reserved. At 9, he understood more than his sister about what had happened. He knew his father had tried to hurt me, that his mother had been involved, that their family had imploded in the most public way possible. "Hey, Mal," I said, ruffling his hair. "How was school?" "Fine," he mumbled, then quieter. Some kids were talking about the trial, about Dad. My heart broke a little. "What did they say?" "That he's a murderer, that our family is evil." His voice cracked. "Am I evil too, Grandma? Because I'm his son?" I knelt down so we were eye level, ignoring the protest from my recently repaired heart. "Malcolm Sterling Hayes," I said firmly, "you listen to me. You are not your father. You are not defined by his choices or his crimes. You are a kind, smart, brave boy who loves his sister and works hard in school and helps elderly ladies cross the street. That's who you are. But what if I grow up to be like him?" "You won't. Do you know how I know?" He shook his head. "Because you're already asking yourself that question. Bad people don't worry about becoming bad. They just are. The fact that you're concerned means you have something your father never had, a conscience." Malcolm thought about this, then nodded slowly. Okay. Besides, I added, pulling him into a hug, you've got me watching over you, and I promise you, I will spend the rest of my life making sure you and your sister grow up to be good humans. Deal? Deal, he whispered into my shoulder. That evening, after the children were asleep, Deshaun requested a meeting. His expression was grave, the look that meant he'd discovered something I wouldn't like. We gathered in Jasmine's office. Me, Jasmine, Deshaun, and Keisha Morgan, the nurse who'd helped me escape the hospital and had since become an unexpected friend. Mrs. Hayes, Deshaun began, pulling out a thick folder. I've been digging deeper into Derek's background, and I found something concerning. More concerning than attempted murder? I asked dryly. In a way, yes. He opened the folder. Derek's gambling debt wasn't random bad luck. He was targeted, deliberately. He spread out documents across the conference table, financial records, surveillance photos, phone logs. Tony Rizzo, the man Derek owes $400,000 to, is the son of Antonio Rizzo, the man your husband Robert sued 20 years ago. The name hit me like a physical blow. Antonio Rizzo, the real estate fraudster who'd tried to destroy Robert's career, the man whose Ponzi scheme had collapsed after Robert's lawsuit, the man who'd committed suicide rather than face prison. Tony Rizzo has been running an underground casino for 15 years, Deshaun continued, but he's selective about his clientele. He targets people with connections to those who wronged his father. It's not just business for him, it's revenge. Jasmine leaned forward, her eyes sharp. So Derek didn't just happen to gamble at Rizzo's casino. Rizzo identified him as Robert Hayes' son-in-law and lured him in deliberately? Exactly. Look at this. Deshaun showed us records of Derek's first few months at the casino. Derek won consistently at first, $50,000 in his first month alone. That's statistically impossible unless the games were rigged in his favor. Rizzo was getting him addicted to winning. Then the wins stopped, I said, seeing the pattern. Completely. Over the next year, Derek lost everything he'd won plus $400,000 more. And the whole time, Rizzo was offering him bigger lines of credit, convincing him the next big win was just around the corner. So Derek thought he was just an unlucky gambler, Keisha said. He had no idea he was a pawn in someone else's revenge plot. But that doesn't excuse what he did, I said firmly. Being manipulated doesn't justify trying to murder someone. Agreed, Deshaun said. But it means this isn't over. Rizzo didn't get what he wanted. Your death, your family's destruction, revenge for his father. And according to my sources, Tony Rizzo doesn't accept failure. A chill ran down my spine. What are you saying? I'm saying you need to be careful, Mrs. Hayes. Very careful. Rizzo is still out there, and he has a long memory. 2 weeks later, I got my answer about Tony Rizzo. I was in my office at Hayes Properties. I'd finally returned to work part-time, trying to rebuild some normalcy, when Deshaun called. Eleanor, don't go home tonight. Go straight to Jasmine's penthouse. I'll meet you there with FBI agent Sarah Martinez. We have a situation. His tone made my blood run cold. An hour later, I sat in Jasmine's living room facing Agent Martinez, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s with FBI credentials and a no-nonsense attitude. Mrs. Hayes, she said, we've had Tony Rizzo under investigation for 3 years. Money laundering, illegal gambling, loan sharking. But we could never get enough evidence to make charges stick. Until now. She pulled out her tablet and showed me surveillance footage. Tony Rizzo, a lean man in his 60s with silver hair and cold eyes, sitting in what looked like a restaurant, talking to someone off camera. We planted an undercover agent in his organization 6 months ago, Martinez continued. Last week, that agent recorded this conversation. She pressed play. Tony Rizzo's voice came through clearly. Robert Hayes destroyed my father, took everything from him, his business, his reputation, his will to live. My father put a gun to his head because of Robert Hayes. That was 20 years ago, boss, another voice said. I don't care if it was 100 years ago. The Hayes family owes a debt, and I intend to collect. Derek Thompson was supposed to be my instrument. He was supposed to kill Eleanor Hayes and destroy that family from within, but he failed. So what now? Now I handle it personally. Eleanor Hayes dies, and her family suffers, just like mine suffered. I want her to watch her family fall apart before she goes. I want her to feel what my father felt. The recording ended. I sat in stunned silence. Derek hadn't just been a greedy, desperate man. He'd been a weapon, a tool of revenge crafted by someone with infinite patience and a grudge that spanned decades. Your husband's lawsuit was legitimate, Agent Martinez said gently. Antonio Rizzo was a criminal who deserved to be stopped, but Tony Rizzo doesn't see it that way. He sees your family as murderers who drove his father to suicide. So what happens now? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Now we use this recording to arrest Tony Rizzo. He'll face federal charges for conspiracy to commit murder, among other things. But Mrs. Hayes, I need you to do something for us first. I didn't like the sound of that. We want you to meet with him, wearing a wire. If we can get him to confess directly to you about the plot against your life, it'll be airtight. He'll spend the rest of his life in federal prison. Every instinct screamed at me to refuse. I was 73 years old with a repaired heart. I'd already survived one murder plot. Why would I voluntarily walk into another dangerous situation? But then I thought about Malcolm and Zara, about the life they deserved, free from threats, free from the shadow of their father's crimes, free from Tony Rizzo's vendetta. I'll do it, I said. Jasmine immediately objected. Eleanor, absolutely not. This is necessary, I finished. If I don't do this, we'll always be looking over our shoulders. Malcolm and Zara will grow up afraid. This ends now. The meeting was set for Rizzo's restaurant, Bella Notte, in Little Havana. It was a beautiful place. White tablecloths, soft lighting, Italian opera playing in the background. The kind of place where tourists came for authentic Italian food, never suspecting the owner was a criminal mastermind. I wore the wire Agent Martinez provided, a tiny device hidden in a necklace. Deshawn and half a dozen FBI agents were positioned around the restaurant, disguised as diners and staff. Tony Rizzo sat alone at a corner table, a glass of red wine in front of him. When I approached, he stood with old-world courtesy. Mrs. Hayes, thank you for accepting my invitation. His voice was smooth, cultured, with just a hint of an Italian accent. Please sit. I sat, my heart pounding but my face calm. You wanted to talk, I said. So talk. He smiled, a cold, reptilian expression. I admire directness. Very well. I assume by now you know who I am? What my father was? Antonio Rizzo, real estate criminal, committed suicide after my husband exposed his Ponzi scheme. Your husband destroyed him, Tony corrected, his voice hardening. My father wasn't a criminal. He was a businessman who took risks. Your husband was a crusader who couldn't let sleeping dogs lie. My husband saved dozens of families from losing their life savings, I said firmly. Your father was stealing from people. Someone had to stop him. Tony's eyes flashed with anger. My father was a good man. He provided for our family. He was respected in our community. And then Robert Hayes comes along with his lawsuit, his self-righteous crusade, and suddenly my father is a pariah. His business collapses. His friends abandon him. His own wife leaves him. He leaned forward, and I saw the decades of rage simmering beneath his civilized veneer. 2 years later, I find him in his study with a gun in his hand and his brains on the wall. Because of Robert Hayes. Because of your family. I'm sorry your father died, I said, and I meant it. But that doesn't justify what you did. You targeted Derek. You manipulated him into trying to kill me. You tried to destroy my family the way you think we destroyed yours. I didn't try, Mrs. Hayes. I succeeded. Your family is destroyed. Your daughter is a convicted criminal. Your son-in-law is in prison. Your grandchildren are traumatized. You're alone, looking over your shoulder, wondering if you're safe. That's the revenge I wanted. That's what you deserve. Why? I asked. Why do I deserve this? I never did anything to you or your father. Because you're a Hayes, he said simply. Because your happiness was built on my family's suffering. Because someone needs to pay. Is that what this is really about? I asked quietly. Or is this about a son who couldn't save his father and needs someone to blame? Tony's face flushed with rage. You know nothing about— I know grief, I interrupted. I know what it's like to lose someone you love. I lost my husband 10 years ago. A real accident, not revenge. And I know what it's like to want to blame someone, anyone, for that pain. But Tony, your father made his choices. He broke the law. He hurt people. Robert stopping him was justice, not murder. Justice? Tony laughed bitterly. You want to talk about justice? I served you justice. I watched Derek Thompson, that weak, pathetic gambler, squirm under my thumb. I watched him steal from you, lie to his wife, plot your murder. I turned him into exactly the kind of monster your husband claimed my father was. And you know what? It felt good. He'd said enough. More than enough. Agent Martinez and her team moved in from all directions, guns drawn. Tony Rizzo, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, extortion, and illegal gambling operations. Put your hands on the table. The color drained from Tony's face as he realized what had happened. His eyes met mine across the table. You wore a wire. I did, I confirmed, standing up. And now everyone will know the truth. Not the story you've been telling yourself for 20 years, but the real truth. Your father was a criminal. My husband stopped him. And you've wasted 2 decades on revenge that accomplished nothing except proving you're exactly like your father, a man who hurts innocent people and calls it justice. As the FBI led him away in handcuffs, Tony Rizzo looked smaller, older, defeated. The vendetta that had consumed his life was over, and so was mine. 1 year later, I stood in my garden watching Malcolm teach Zara how to plant tomatoes. The Miami sun was warm on my face, and my heart, that repaired, still-beating heart, felt strong. The garden had become our sanctuary. Every Sunday, Malcolm, Zara, and I worked here together, our hands in the dirt, building something beautiful from the ground up, just like I was trying to build our lives. Vanessa appeared from the house, carrying a pitcher of lemonade. She'd completed her community service and therapy. She'd gotten a job as a volunteer coordinator at a domestic violence shelter, helping other women recognize manipulation and escape dangerous situations. We weren't mother and daughter again, not the way we'd been before. That relationship had died in a hospital hallway, and no amount of time could resurrect it completely. But we were building something new, something more honest, if more fragile. Kids, she called. Lemonade break. Malcolm and Zara ran over, their hands dirty, their faces bright with joy. Watching them, I felt a fierce protectiveness that had nothing to do with blood and everything to do with love. My phone buzzed. A text from Jasmine. Hayes Family Protection Fund just received its 500th case. You're changing lives, Eleanor. The foundation had become my purpose. Using my experience and my resources to protect elderly people from financial abuse, to educate families about manipulation tactics, to provide legal support for victims. Vanessa worked there part-time now, sharing her story with other families. I'm living proof, she'd tell them, that you can be a good person and still make terrible choices. The key is recognizing manipulation before it's too late. Keisha had joined our board, bringing medical expertise. Deshawn provided security consultations. Even Tyrone Mitchell, the nurse who'd almost killed me, had become an advocate, speaking to healthcare workers about the importance of reporting suspicious requests. We'd turned tragedy into purpose. Grandma? Zara's voice pulled me from my thoughts. Are you okay? You look sad. I smiled, pulling her into a hug. Not sad, sweetheart. Just thinking. About what? About how lucky I am, Malcolm snorted. Lucky? Grandma, someone tried to kill you. I know, but I survived. And because I survived, I got to spend this year with you two. I got to build this foundation. I got to watch your mother become brave enough to face her mistakes. I got to forgive. Not forget, but forgive. That's not luck, Mal. That's grace. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. Mom, don't, I said gently. We don't need big emotional moments. We just need to keep showing up, keep doing the work, keep being honest. That's enough. She nodded, wiping her eyes. That evening, after the children were asleep, I sat on my back porch with a cup of tea looking at the stars. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Eleanor Hayes? A woman's voice, young, uncertain. Yes? My name is Madison Pierce. I was Derek Thompson's girlfriend. I went very still. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, Madison continued quickly. But I needed to tell you something. I had Derek's baby, a little girl. Her name is Hope. Why are you telling me this? Because, she took a shaky breath, because I was looking through Derek's things he'd left at my apartment before his arrest, and I found a letter. He wrote it after you exposed him, before the trial. He never sent it, but I think you should hear it." "Read it," I said, not sure I wanted to hear, but knowing I needed to. Madison's voice shook as she read. "Eleanor, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that Tony Rizzo didn't create a monster. He just found one already lurking inside me. I chose to steal from you. I chose to manipulate Vanessa. I chose to plan your murder. Maybe Rizzo gave me the opportunity, but I walked through that door willingly. You were right about me all along. I was never worthy of your family. I'm sorry. Not because I got caught, but because I finally understand what I destroyed. Take care of Malcolm and Zara. They deserve better than me." Silence. "Why did you want me to hear that?" I asked finally. "Because Hope is going to grow up asking about her father," Madison said. "And I'm going to tell her the truth, that he was a man who made terrible choices, but at the very end he understood what he'd done. I thought maybe you'd want to know that too." "Thank you," I said quietly, "for telling me." "Mrs. Hayes, one more thing. Hope has grandparents. Your grandchildren have a half-sister. I'm not asking for money or trying to insert myself into your life, but someday if you ever wanted them to know each other, I'd be open to that." I thought about Malcolm and Zara, about family, blood, and chosen, about forgiveness and grace. "Let me think about it," I said. "But Madison, thank you for the letter. It helps." After we hung up, I sat in the darkness for a long time. Derek's letter didn't excuse his actions. It didn't erase the trauma or heal the wounds. But it offered something I hadn't expected. Closure. The confirmation that even the worst people can have moments of genuine remorse, even if those moments come too late. 18 months after that terrible day in the hospital, I stood before a crowd of 200 people at the Hayes Foundation annual gala. "I almost died," I told them. "Not from a weak heart, but from misplaced trust. From believing that family meant unconditional love. But I learned that family isn't about blood. It's about loyalty. It's about people who show up, who tell the truth, who protect you even when it costs them something." I looked at the table where my chosen family sat. Jasmine, who'd dropped everything to save me. Deshawn, who'd protected me when I was most vulnerable. Keisha, who'd trusted a frightened old woman in a hospital bathroom. Vanessa, who was slowly earning her way back into my life. Malcolm and Zara, who reminded me every day why survival mattered. So tonight, as we celebrate the 500 families we've helped this year, I want to leave you with this. Trust, but verify. Love, but protect yourself. Forgive, but never forget. And most importantly, your life is worth fighting for, no matter your age, no matter what your family says, no matter how hopeless things seem. The crowd rose in a standing ovation, but I wasn't thinking about applause or accolades. I was thinking about that moment in the hospital hallway, that terrible, clarifying moment when I heard my daughter plot my murder. That moment that could have been my end, but instead became my beginning. 30 minutes before surgery, I'd been a naive old woman ready to trust her life to people who wanted her dead. Now, at 73, I was a survivor, an advocate, a fighter. And I wasn't done yet. 5 years later, Malcolm, now 14, stood at the front of his 8th grade class presenting his history project. The Hayes Family Protection Act, How My Grandmother Changed Elder Care Law in Florida. I watched from the back of the classroom via video call. My heart couldn't handle too much travel anymore, but technology had its advantages. "My grandmother almost died because of financial elder abuse," Malcolm said confidently. "But instead of hiding or being ashamed, she used her experience to protect other people. Because of her foundation's advocacy, Florida now requires dual authorization for large financial transfers from elderly accounts, mandatory reporting of suspected elder abuse, and criminal penalties for family members who financially exploit seniors." He clicked to the next slide, a photo of me, Vanessa, and the kids at the Foundation's 5-year anniversary celebration. She also taught me that forgiveness isn't weakness, it's strength. My mom made terrible mistakes, but Grandma showed her grace while also holding her accountable. That's real love. After class, Malcolm video called me. "So, how'd I do?" "You were brilliant," I said, my heart swelling with pride. "Your research was thorough, your delivery was confident, and your message was powerful." "Thanks, Grandma. Hey, Mom wants to talk to you." Vanessa's face appeared on screen. She'd aged, we all had, but there was a peace in her eyes that hadn't been there 5 years ago. "Hey, Mom, the Foundation's lawyer called. The Thompson case settlement finally came through. Derek's assets, everything that's left after restitution, will go into Hope's trust fund." Hope, Derek's daughter with Madison, now 5 years old, a bright-eyed little girl who played with Malcolm and Zara twice a month under my supervision. Family was complicated. "Good," I said. "She'll need it for college." "Mom, I know I say this too often, but thank you for giving me a second chance, for letting me be part of the Foundation, for not giving up on me. Vanessa, I gave up on the daughter who betrayed me, but I found a new daughter who earned her way back through honesty and hard work. That's who you are now." After we hung up, I sat in my garden, older now, the tomatoes thriving, new plants added each year. Jasmine had retired last year. Deshawn had gotten married. Keisha had been promoted to head nurse at St. Joseph's, where she'd implemented new protocols for preventing medical fraud. And I was 78 years old, with a repaired heart that kept beating against the odds. I'd lost a daughter and gained her back. Different but real. I'd lost my naivety and gained wisdom. I'd lost trust in blood family and gained faith in chosen family. I'd survived. And in surviving, I'd learned the most important lesson of all. It's never too late to save yourself. It's never too late to rebuild. It's never too late to turn tragedy into purpose. 30 minutes before my surgery, I'd overheard a conversation that changed everything. Those 30 minutes had given me 5 more years. 5 years of watching my grandchildren grow. 5 years of helping 500 families escape abuse. 5 years of proving that survival isn't just about staying alive. It's about deciding that your life still matters, still has purpose, still deserves to be fought for. I looked at the tomato plants Malcolm and Zara had helped me plant that spring. We'd harvest them together next month. And the month after that, we'd plant something new. Because that's what survivors do. We keep planting, we keep growing, we keep living.